In previous years, when I would be teaching about acids and bases, I would go through this list. I check off each and every item until I've taught my students everything before they're ready for their first lab activity. Boring. This year, I do things differently. I get my students to immediately explore. I give them a weak acid and a weak base. They test it out with pH paper, litmus paper. They test out the conductivity. They explore. Before I delve into my lesson, let's first check out why this explore before explain really means better lessons. Check out this book, Instructional Sequence Matters by Patrick Brown, specifically written for high school students. Patrick Brown emphasizes 4 key sequences to use in your instruction. 1. Link students' prior experiences to new ideas. What student does not know about their stomach acid? Acid, reflux. Give students first-hand experiences with analyzing data. Conductivity meter, pH paper, there's your data. 3. Allow students to use the data and evidence to form scientific claims. What features are similar about acids and bases? They both conduct as their aqueous solutions. What distinguishes them? Acids turn litmus paper red. Bases turn litmus paper blue. We start simple. Finally, 4. Facilitate the linking of more complex knowledge with student-constructed knowledge. What would happen if we were to mix the acid and the base together? A neutralization reaction. Salt water. Let's review those 4 steps real quick. 1. Link students' prior experiences to new ideas. Give students first-hand experiences with analyzing data. Let them use that data and evidence to form their own scientific claims. And finally, facilitate the linking of more complex knowledge with student-constructed knowledge. Here is my actual write-up of this lesson. The link in the description below allows you to get your copy of that lesson with the key. We start out with Explore 1, where students play around with relatively strong acids and bases, though at a low concentration. The second Explore involves determining the key characteristics of weaker acids and bases, which does not necessarily require the use of goggles. So I give them vinegar and baking soda. Here's the data that they would find for vinegar. I call vinegar chaku. Here's some sample data my students found with baking soda. Okay, they've done the Explore. Let's now engage them by analyzing their own data. I don't give them a data table. Let them construct it themselves. This is my sample key data table constructed in Google Sheets, which they can incorporate right into a Google Doc with a hyperlink, or do it using pen and paper, whatever you prefer. We've completed our Explore 1 with relatively strong acids and bases. We've completed our Explore 2 with relatively weak acids and bases. We've allowed our students to engage with the data. Now we're ready to explain. This image is a hint as to what students can do with the acids and bases they have been provided. What happens if we mix them? In this case, vinegar and baking soda is mixed, and it results in the production of sodium acetate and carbonic acid, which releases CO2. So this data would be a great stepping stone to lab neutralization reactions, in essence, a titration. So that brings me to the elaborate component of this lesson. As we did our Explore, we did our Explain, and that allows you to go into the next step. How does the pH change during a neutralization reaction? And my idea is to now not really use your regular standard titration setup. I wish to keep things simple for my students and instead use a well plate that they're going to place on top of a balance. Add a little bit of 0.1 molar hydrochloric acid and then add little amounts of 0.1 molar, they don't know that concentration, of sodium hydroxide. And measure using simple pH paper the pH at each step. My video on this is coming up soon. Do not use the basic titration setup, which is rather involved, but keep it simple with a micro titration. What standard are we following with this particular lesson? The Next Gen Science Standard HSPS 1-2 on simple chemical reactions. And for those of you in New York State, again, that would be me, it is actually HSPS 1-11 because acids and bases is one of those standards that the NYSSLS has incorporated into their science standards. So what I've emphasized in this video is to think about starting each science concept with a complete explore before explaining anything. That way, the students are more engaged in the activity and will hopefully start making those connections that they have based on prior knowledge. So stay tuned for my next video. Bedankt voor het kijken en tot ziens. See you in my next video.